Come for the money, stay for the freedom. A lot of people get into Bitcoin because they see the number go up and they want to make money. And so they start to look up Bitcoin. They start to, buy it and, play with it and experiment with it and watch videos of perhaps Michael Saylor and all these crypto guys who also talk about Bitcoin. But there are people who talk strictly about Bitcoin like myself, and there are people who talk about different kinds of cryptos, Bitcoin included. But the reason why I say come for the money and stay for the Bitcoin, because a lot of people who get into Bitcoin, they come from a purely self-interested, should I say greedy intention of making more money. But then they, go down the rabbit hole and they start to be interested in a lot of interesting things like economics, money, history, politics, and it all starts with Bitcoin. Because think about it, I've said this in many of my old videos. Bitcoin is at the intersection between all the interesting subjects. If you want to talk politics, you need to talk money, therefore you need to talk Bitcoin. If you want to talk history, you need to talk money, therefore you're going to talk about Bitcoin. If you want to talk about art, if you want to talk about nutrition, if you want to talk about everything, if you want to talk about freedom, if you want to talk about sovereignty, if you want to talk about technology, if you want to talk about anything that is, if you want to talk about health and sports, you will also talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at the heart of every interesting subject, of every interesting topic. And a lot of people get into Bitcoin because of that, and then they start to be interested in these things. And that's good. That's good. But for me, here is the funny thing. For me, I was actually interested in all of these things. And that's what got me into Bitcoin. I got into Bitcoin not because I thought of it as an investment asset. I'll be honest with you, Michael Saylor is the one who convinced me of Bitcoin as an investment asset. But I was introduced to Bitcoin, and I became interested in Bitcoin because I was into libertarianism. And I was a kind of a libertarian at the time, and I believed in freedom money. And I didn't want the government to control the money. I didn't want the government to control a lot of things, but the most important thing was the money. I read a lot of libertarian literature. I've read Ludwig von Mises and Marion Rothbard and Friedrich Hayek and Hans Hermann Hoppe and all these writers. I was into libertarian ideology and economics. That was my shtick. That's what I was interested in. I was into politics. And I stumbled into Bitcoin and I was like, this is revolutionary stuff. If it works out, then maybe we would come closer to that ideal libertarian society. Although I don't believe I'm not as libertarian as I was back in the day. My views have kind of developed since then, but still, that's how I got in. That's oh my God, I can't even speak anymore. That's how I got interested into Bitcoin, because of my libertarian interests. And I think the opposite is happening to a lot of people. They became interested in Bitcoin because they want to make money, but then they become interested in libertarian interests. Then they become interested in economics. Then they become interested in politics. Then they become interested in history and all of these things. And I think that's good. I think that's Bitcoin makes people better. Physically, intellectually, spiritually even. Once you get into Bitcoin, once you start to think about how money influences every aspect of your life and every aspect of life, it influences politics, it influences economics, it influences arts and culture and food. It influences everything. So you can't be interested in Bitcoin without being interested in all of these things. And the more we get people interested into Bitcoin, the more we spread these ideas of freedom and sovereignty. Excuse me. The more we spread Bitcoin, the more we get people to realize the importance of low time preference and the danger of high time preference. The more we get people to see what's going on with our societies right now. Everything is fueled by low time preference incentives. Sorry, high time preference incentives and low and high time preference behavior. And so this is the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. This is the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. It's a revolutionary invention that makes people better. It doesn't just improve your finance. It doesn't just makes you wealthier and anti-fragile. It makes you smarter. It makes you better. It makes you well-rounded. And it improves your life and the life of your family in every aspect. And I think that's what everybody's should be striving for. And so when people ask me, some of my friends, they ask me, why are you focusing too much on Bitcoin in your channel? Why did your channel pivot from self-development and, fitness and money and all this stuff, and you basically just talk about Bitcoin? Well, this is why. Because Bitcoin is at the heart of everything. If you want to talk about self-development or self-improvement and you don't talk about Bitcoin, then I'm sorry, you're not talking about self-improvement. Self-improvement cannot begin without financial literacy and without financial means and without financial sovereignty, if I might say so. I made a video about Nassim Taleb talking about his ideas, and one of them was anti-fragility. You can't be anti-fragile without owning the most anti-fragile asset in the history of mankind, and that is Bitcoin. We just can't. And especially in the last 5 years, with all the cancellations that we've seen, with all the censorship and the tightening, although it's not as tight as it were between the period of 2018 to 2022 or 2023, things have relaxed a bit, especially since Elon Musk took over Twitter and Donald Trump was elected. But it might not last, And Bitcoin is your escape from being controlled and from being debanked and from being cancelled. So Bitcoin is more than just money goes up. Yes, we want money goes up. Everybody wants to be rich. Who doesn't want to be rich? Everybody wants to be rich. And anyone who denies it is a liar or is trying to sell you something. Okay? When you have money, you have freedom. When you have money, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. You can deal and cooperate and associate with people you want to deal with and cooperate with and associate with. When you are rich, you have freedom of association. I can associate with whomever I want, and I can disassociate from whoever I want. When you know that nobody can take your money or freeze it, then you are braver. If more people knew that they can actually have more control over whatever they own, if more people knew that they have property rights, which is like the bedrock of civilization and the building blocks of capitalism, it's property rights. When you know that you have property rights, then you become fearless. You become self-reliant and you become self-responsible. You can't own Bitcoin, especially if you own it, if you self-custody your own Bitcoin, without being responsible. Owning Bitcoin through self-custody pushes you and incentivizes you to be self-responsible because you are responsible over pretty much all of your money. And if you fuck it up, you're going to lose your life savings. So Bitcoin, basically what I want to say in all of this video, what my main point is that Bitcoin is more than just money goes up. Bitcoin is way bigger than all of this. Bitcoin is a revolution. It's a peaceful revolution. And it's going to make a lot of people think better and behave better. And maybe it's the solution to all of our society's problems that are caused by the fiat system and by the money printer. So yeah, that's all I want to say in this video. Let me guys know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel. Send this video to a friend or two. And see you in the next one. Take care.